This is my neighborhood. I decide what stays and what goes, and that car is gone.
Judge Michael Harper had spent 23 years on the bench in Harris County, Texas. He was known for two things: being fair and avoiding unnecessary attention. At 58 years old, Michael had seen just about everything the legal system had to offer. After his wife passed away 3 years earlier, he decided it was time for a change of pace and moved into a quiet community called Oak Ridge Estates on the outskirts of Houston. He wasn't looking for excitement, just peace. Most mornings began the same way: coffee on the porch, a walk around the neighborhood, and a few minutes reading before heading to the courthouse. To his neighbors, he was simply Mike from down the street. Very few people knew he was a judge, and he preferred it that way. Unfortunately, nobody had warned him about Denise Caldwell. Denise had served as HOA president for 6 years and treated Oak Ridge Estates less like a neighborhood and more like her personal kingdom. She monitored security cameras, patrolled the streets in her golf cart, and had a reputation for issuing fines over the smallest violations imaginable. One homeowner received a warning because their garbage bin was visible from the sidewalk. Another was fined for leaving Christmas decorations up one day too long. People complained, but nobody fought back, because fighting Denise usually made things worse. 3 months after moving in, Michael purchased a vintage black 1969 Ford Mustang. It had been his dream car since he was a teenager. He spent weekends restoring it with his late father's tools and rarely drove it except on special occasions. The car was immaculate, and according to HOA guidelines, perfectly legal. There was only one issue: Denise hated it. "It's an eyesore," she told neighbors during a board meeting. "It's attracting unnecessary attention." Ironically, that statement would later become front-page news. One Friday evening, Michael parked the Mustang in his driveway after returning from a local charity event. He planned to spend Saturday morning taking it to a classic car show. Instead, he woke up to an empty driveway. At first, he thought he was mistaken. Then he noticed tire marks leading toward the street. His car was gone. Minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Standing outside was Denise, holding a clipboard and smiling. "Good morning, Mr. Harper. Just letting you know your vehicle was removed due to multiple HOA violations." Michael blinked. "Removed?" "Towed," she clarified. "You were warned repeatedly." Michael frowned. "I've never received a warning." Denise flipped through several papers. "Well, according to our records, notices were sent." "Could I see them?" "No." The conversation should have ended there, but Denise couldn't resist adding one final comment. "Perhaps next time you'll think twice before ignoring community standards." Michael stared at her for several seconds. Then he asked a simple question. "Who authorized the tow?" Denise smiled. "I did." "Interesting." That was all he said. No argument, no raised voice, just one word. "Interesting." 3 hours later, Michael arrived at the towing company's lot with copies of the HOA bylaws. The manager immediately looked uncomfortable. According to the paperwork, Denise had claimed the vehicle was abandoned. There was just one problem. It had been parked in Michael's own driveway. Michael quietly requested copies of every document related to the tow. Then he made 2 phone calls. The first was to his attorney. The second was to the county clerk's office. By Monday morning, Oak Ridge Estates had become unusually busy. A process server delivered legal notices to both the HOA and Denise personally. Residents watched from their windows as Denise repeatedly read the first page, her expression changing with every line. The lawsuit alleged unlawful towing, property interference, abuse of authority, and fraudulent representation. News spread quickly through the neighborhood. "Did you hear Denise got sued?" "Apparently it's over the Mustang." "No, apparently it's much worse than that." By Tuesday afternoon, local media picked up the story after discovering one detail Denise had overlooked. The homeowner she had targeted wasn't just another resident, he was Judge Michael Harper. Reporters loved the headline. HOA President Tao's judge's classic car faces lawsuit. Within hours, television vans appeared outside Oak Ridge Estates. Residents who had spent years avoiding Denise suddenly found themselves speaking to reporters. Stories poured in. One family had received $3,000 in fines over landscaping. Another had been threatened over a backyard shed. A retired couple claimed Denise once measured their fence with a tape measure. For the first time in years, people were no longer afraid. During discovery, attorneys uncovered something remarkable. Denise had never received board approval for the tow. There were no violation notices, no hearing, no vote, and no evidence the Mustang violated a single HOA rule. She had simply decided she didn't like the car. It got worse. The towing company admitted Denise had falsely claimed the vehicle was abandoned on official paperwork. That transformed a civil dispute into something potentially much more serious. At the hearing, the judge assigned to the case reviewed the evidence for less than an hour. He examined photographs showing the Mustang parked neatly inside Michael's driveway. He reviewed the HOA documents. Then he reviewed the towing authorization form. Finally, he looked toward Denise. "Mrs. Caldwell, are you suggesting this court should believe a vehicle parked in its owner's driveway was abandoned?" The courtroom fell silent. Denise attempted to explain that she was acting in the community's best interest. The judge wasn't impressed. By the end of the hearing, the HOA was ordered to compensate Michael for towing expenses, legal fees, and additional damages. The towing company settled separately. And Denise? Her problems were just beginning. The county attorney's office later opened an investigation into the false statements made on the towing authorization form. 3 days later, Oak Ridge Estates held an emergency HOA meeting. For the first time in 6 years, every seat in the clubhouse was filled. Residents stood along the walls. Some remained outside listening through open windows. One by one, homeowners shared their experiences. By the end of the evening, a vote was called. The result wasn't even close. Denise Caldwell was removed as HOA president by an overwhelming majority. As for Michael, he finally took his Mustang to the classic car show the following weekend. When he returned home that afternoon, he found something unexpected. Nearly a dozen classic cars parked along his street. Neighbors had organized their own unofficial car meet in support. Michael laughed for the first time in weeks. Because sometimes justice doesn't happen inside a courtroom. Sometimes it happens in your own neighborhood. And sometimes the biggest mistake a bully can make is assuming nobody will fight back. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to The Unwritten Tale, where we uncover unbelievable neighborhood drama, hidden truths, and the extraordinary stories behind ordinary people.